Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm gamesplaining Land vs. Sea. Land vs. Sea is a 2 to 4 player game that came out this year from Good Games Publishing. I appreciate this game. I actually quite enjoy the game on the table. Just talk for a moment about the player count. I firmly believe that this is a 2-player game. I really think that if you're buying this game in, you want it as a 2-player thing. Yes, it has the ability to go to 3 or 4 players, but it is actually a 2-player game. There are some rules. There's a page of rules that allow to go to 3 players and brings in a third faction. I haven't played the 3-player version, but my instinct is that it was a little bit convoluted in the reading of it. And I was like, okay. And then the 4-player version looks just like the 2-player version, except there's 2 players on each side. So it's Land versus Sea, thus the title. So as a 2-player game, and that's what all my Gamesplanation Gamesplay is about, it actually works really well. I really enjoy this game. You have a set of tiles in front of you that is a shared area, and you are adding a tile to that. You have 2 to choose from. Each tile you have in front of you has 2 sides, so you've really got 4 options with what you're adding in to the area. What you're trying to do is close off areas of land or areas of sea, depending on which side you're playing. When you close off an area of, for example, sea, if you're the sea player, you're getting a point per spot that, or per tile, should I say, that your sea area that you've just closed off goes across. Same deal for the land. There are little crosses on some of these spots which give points to the person who closes that area. So if you're playing sea and you close a land area that has 3 crosses on it, the land person is going to get the points for the number of tiles in that land area, but you're going to get 3 points for the crosses. And so you have this thing of, oh, that looks like it's about to be closed off, there's a whole bunch of points in there, I might close it off. Or you look at it and go, that's about to be closed off, can I add something that's going to stop that from being closed off and open that up to make it a lot harder? And there's always that consideration. But in amongst that, you've got to look at what you're doing and close things off. The rules suggest to go for smaller areas than to go for one large area. The reasoning for that is once you start getting to a larger area, it's actually really hard to close it. And I've found this in every game that I've played, that I'll allow a spot to get a little large and then suddenly it's like, oh no, I need to close that off somehow. And you've got to close off a whole bunch of different spots around the area, land or sea, to be able to do that. The first game I had, I was playing as sea, and I thought, oh, this is just a sea problem, because it's hard to close off. But no, I played as land as well, and I found the exact same issue. So if you can catch areas while they're small and close them out, you're going to do really well, because you'll be able to score them straight away, score, rather than hoping to get one large score at the end. Or even worse, looking for a large score at the end, but not actually able to close it off, so you're not able to do anywhere near as well as you possibly could have done. Now, there are some extra rules included in the game, so you can play that as just the base game, or you can play with the extra rules, and you can choose which of the extra rules to use, which ones not to use. One of them is about areas of coral, I think it is, and mountains, or something to that effect, and each time you add to an area that has coral, you're getting a point for every area that's in there. So it kind of builds up to wanting to get many of those tiles that have the coral next to each other. It pushes you in a certain direction. Even if the other person placed it, you're still getting the points for it. So that's both the land and the sea version. I was just talking about coral just because it's easier to talk about coral than mountains, but it could be on the mountains as well. Then there's another one that's called caravans, where you're getting points, or 2 points, for placing a wagon or a ship next to another wagon or ship. It doesn't matter which one you're placing, by the way. You could be land and place a ship. That's absolutely fine. So you're getting 2 points just for placing them in. At the end of the game, we're looking for each of these areas that have a couple of wagons or ships next to each other, and they have created a caravan. And so whoever has the most in that caravan, so if there's, say, 3 ships and 2 wagons, the ships have it. That person who is playing C in that case would get 5 points. It's a point per element that you're going through. If there's 3 and 3, no one gets it. And so there's this real push-pull on when you're playing, do I want to put this into the area because I'll get some points straight away, but will I get the points at the end? And just that amount of thinking that comes into it. And even with the coral and the mountains and placing those tiles so that they can get extra points, they can get distracting and pull you away from closing off an area. So there's this push-pull, and it's actually a really good push-pull. It's a really thinky kind of, oh, do I actually want to do that kind of element? Now, there is a third element that can be added in. That is adding one of your markers to a land or sea space. That marker is going to come back to you when that land or sea is scored, or if the tile that you've placed the marker on gets completely surrounded. Whoever completely surrounds it will get the point. I tend to forget about that whenever I've been playing. So the last couple of games I've played with all 3 of the extra stuff, and I've kind of forgotten about the extra token, and so has my lovely wife who plays the other side has forgotten to add that in. I don't know how many points are on that. I mean, it does serve the purpose of driving the opposition to go to a certain thing to try to build this up for you. So that's really good. But I'm not 100% sure how much thought process goes into that. I do wonder if on the 3 or 4 player game, if it becomes a little bit more of a element that is useful. I haven't found a huge use for it. Or if it does get used, the brain patterns of the people playing haven't really gone after it. It's just kind of, that happens to be there, so it's some bonus, a bonus point, without really working towards getting that. I also found, because the person who closes off an area gets the crosses, I found in the first game that I played that I was actually trying to close off areas of land that had crosses in it, even though I was playing C, just so I could pick up those cross points. I don't know if that's a real thing. And it may have done me better to keep driving them out, or even just focus on what I was doing, which is the way that I tend to play anyway. With this game, I'll tend to just now focus on my stuff. Whatever I'm doing, be it land or sea, I'll focus on getting that built out, and whatever the other player does is what they do. It doesn't really affect me. Those extra points of the coral or mountains and the boats or ships, and the caravan thing, they are some extra points, and that's actually where I tend to find that I'm thinking of, like, the first thing I'm thinking while I'm playing is, can I place a single tile that will close that off? Or this area is getting quite large, how can I close it off because we're going to come to the end of the game if I'm not very careful? That's the first thought. But after that, I'm then looking, okay, I've got 2 bits of coral there. How can I add into that to gain me 3 more points? How can I add to that to gain 4 points? Etc, etc. And then, okay, there's a boat on this tile. If I put that down over here, that will extend that. But will I extend that for my benefit, or will that only expand for the benefit of the other player? It will give me 2 points now, but will it give more points to the other player later? Those are the kinds of thoughts that I'm having as I'm playing. There's a lot going on with that. Now, there is also one extra tile that has a whole bunch of crosses on it and has a whole bunch of coral or a whole bunch of mountains, depending on which side of the tile is used. That sits out of the game and just on the side. The only way that is brought in is if you have managed to surround an area with just land, or you've managed to surround an area with just sea. And so building towards getting that in can be a worthwhile thing. That can be stopped by someone just placing something that'll throw the other terrain type in. But there's some potential uber points there. I think in the game display, you'll see that I work really hard to get, I think it's C, to build a space to take that in. And they build that with a whole bunch of coral, which will gain a whole bunch of extra points as well. So look out for that. It's hard to do. Don't misunderstand me. It is hard to do, but it's a worthwhile thing to kind of just keep in the back of the mind. There's a whole bunch of that extra point stuff there. And this is really the game, is finding those little extra points here and there can actually make the difference between winning and losing. Because theoretically, the tiles that are in the box should show an evenness throughout the entire game, an even amount of sea and land. And so there's no one of those two has any benefit. The other thing to bear in mind, and this is something just with the way we play, is that there are two stacks of tiles that you can take from. There's one side showing from each of those tiles. So if I take one, I'm allowed to look at the other tile, but I need to keep it face down that way as well. So no one knows what's on the other side. Having a think about that, some of the tiles have a little icon in the middle of them, which allows you to play a second tile. Some of them have a little icon in the middle, which allows you to steal a tile from the other player. It's little stuff like that that actually makes the difference between everyone being totally even and one person just pushing ahead a little bit. So look, there's a lot of stuff going on with this. It's a relatively simple game to understand and to play, but there's a lot going on. And this is the stuff that fits into my wheelhouse right at the moment, is games that have that intricacy and that thought and that, see my shoulders going, oh, that on them, but with a relatively simple rule set. That's the games that I'm really loving at the moment. And I think they're the games that tend to be coming out and people going, oh yeah, I really like that. So look, I'll leave it there. Please go ahead and watch my Gamesplay and Gamesplanation to get a feel for Land versus Sea, to see if you like it, if it's something that you would enjoy. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be gamesplained, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games that I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.